All right, hello everyone. Exciting. This is the first day I'm recording somewhere besides Austin. If you haven't noticed yet, I'm in Houston and I'm right next to NASA. So I'm here for work, and I'm here for Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So in that time I want to go to NASA. Hopefully I get to go to NASA space station and just see all the history with it, and also go to a prominent boardwalk. It's called Kima, and I'm actually right next to both of them, so I'm honestly super excited. So hopefully I get to go to both of them, and work allows it, and we'll see. But uh, in the meantime, it's pretty late. I keep doing these really late at night. It's that intro video for the podcast took a lot longer to upload. But anyways, besides the point, and the kind of thing I wanted to talk about today is something that's been on my mind for a while, and that I'm kind of hesitant to talk about, honestly. And it's just about consciousness and the unconscious. Now, being conscious and consciousness is a loaded word. I think a lot of people put too many definitions onto consciousness, that to the point where it makes it confusing. So consciousness is reason, making the decisions, and being able to assess value. So those are kind of your reasoning aspects. But a lot of people I'm seeing, like the panpsychism with Philip Goff, not Goth. He's not Goth. Goff talks about our consciousness as the subjective experience, and at least for me, yeah, that's kind of a. I mean, I feel like it's a no-brainer, or not even to consciousness, but just the like living being it's in itself. Like, we're seeing multiple studies where our animals are shown to actually feel pain, and that's through their brain function. So it's almost like a biological imperative. Not even imperative. I will say I don't think molecules do. So there is a hierarchy of your subjective, but I think that can easily be explained, and with actually having a brain, I'm not a biologist, so I don't know how far that goes. This one reason I wanted to get into the vlog is so I can express my thoughts out loud and see how they sound, and then be like, oh yeah, that's stupid. So I think the biological front, I want to take a little bit a deeper route in and see, okay, what is subjective experience, and how does it play out in the animal kingdom of biology? So that's one thing, and I'm going to be thinking about a little bit more. Well, thank you, internet, for letting me talk to you. But one idea I wanted it to kind of like lay out and just think about, and that I was journaling a little bit about, was just like how we kind of have different selves per se. So we have like our biological self. So that would include all what your brain does, right? The neurotransmitters. So that's easily how you feel happiness. You feel happiness through oxytocin. Oh, it got lighter. Oh my God. Oxytocin, dopamine, serotonin, endorphins, of course, other neurotransmitters, but those are the big ones. And then you also feel fear and then I think fear is cortisol. I don't know. You can fact check me on that. But needless to say, neurotransmitters have a big part of our emotions, but also that's kind of like our biological self. That's how our brain's operating, is what we can see in the brain, how the brain is functioning, and what parts of brain stimulate what different parts. So a lot of your feelings, your emotions. So also your touch, your smell. Me touching a computer, and me booping y'all. If you watch this video this far, I'm so sorry. But yeah, so that would be one of our selves. I also think there's another self of which a lot of people have called the ego, and I like to think of it more as like the controlling self. So this is how this is us making decisions. This is how humans are. One big reason why humans are different and then different animals is we can reason, we can make decisions, we can assess value. This is our part of our controlling self, and it's also our ability to know our self-awareness is essentially of just being able to know why we do certain actions, and being able to assess ourselves in those actions, because self-awareness is almost the core of needing to make decisions, right? You need to be self-aware of yourself and your values and who you are, and also that you're a living organism that has different needs and wants and desires to even make decisions in the first place. And also assessing values, same thing. And you need to be self-aware of yourself and what you value, to value things outside of yourself. So like my trusty pen, and I'm gonna value this pen differently than you do because I have a self-awareness of myself and what I want, and also the subjective experience too of just saying, and this is my favorite pen, and I wouldn't trade it for $1,000. Well, you might think it's crazy because you have your own perspectives, and you have a self-awareness of yourself and your own perspectives and values to say, oh, what? It's just a pen. Like, I wouldn't even pay $1 for it. So that's how we get. I think we get our different perspectives and perspectives from, and then on our consciousness as well, is through that controlling self, which is primarily through humans. I hesitate to say only humans, just because as there have been, just with like chimpanzees, a little bit of just them being able to socialize with complete strangers, which is really weird because a natural instinct for animals is to ward away from anything that's outside of the tribe, and it's almost like their instinct. So there's some fronts to be able to learn from there, and I'm also ignorant about the animal kingdom. Like I said, I'm not a biologist, so I don't really know. So it'd be awesome to talk with biologists and kind of see like what happens in the animal kingdom. But anyways, is biological self, controlling self. Then we have the unconscious self, and that's kind of what we. Let me go a little bit in depth in like how meditation works. So one aspect why meditation kind of works is that it's not that you're calming your mind per se, but whenever you get into like a choiceless meditation where you do absolutely nothing, it's your controlling self turning into more an observing mind of everything around you and everything internally inside of you. And once you do that, you start to notice that thoughts are going through your head without your control, and they're not yours. And that's what I think the unconscious mind is. A part of it is these thoughts that you're observing in your mind that are going through you. A good example is if I say, hey, think of a purple monkey, you're most likely going to think of a purple monkey. But it's not you. It's your unconscious thinking that. It's your unconscious taking it and putting it in your brain real quick and being like, ah, purple monkey, ah! I actually did a video of the monkey mind where I did that example and I put a subliminal purple monkey. Yeah, go back and watch it. It's hilarious. I'll probably have a card over here somewhere. I have to go look at it. But yeah, so that's more of the unconscious mind. And also, the unconscious mind is always taking in. It's like kind of like the floodlight. Right, so where the controlling mind is more of our conscious, being conscious and aware, and having a certain spotlight on different objects. Our conscious mind is kind of like the floodlight, where it takes in almost everything, well, unconsciously. Let me see if I can explain that more. It takes in almost anything without us even being aware of it. So when we see McDonald's, every other corner, our unconscious mind tracks that, and it sees, okay, where are we gonna? And then later on, we say, you're talking with your spouse or something, you want to be like, oh, what fast food restaurant should we go eat? And you're like, oh, what about McDonald's? And in that instance, it's not you consciously thinking McDonald's. Well, it is conscious that you're consciously thinking of McDonald's, but you consciously think about it because your unconscious has registered McDonald's on every single corner and almost cemented in your mind. This is kind of like the determinism. I think I said it right. Determinism theory, where all your environment and plays a factor in how you act and behave. Whereas the controlling self is more of the free will aspect. At least is how I'm thinking of it. The free will aspect. So we have biological self, controlling self, unconscious self. And the last two, I'm a little hesitant to talk about it because I know it's going to get torn to shreds, but that's absolutely okay. I want to hear all the arguments and all the reasons why they are wrong, so I can at least better my arguments or shift and pivot to strengthen my arguments as well. That's why my spirit animal is a dragonfly, because I pivot midair and I figure it out as I go. So the fourth one, I would say, is called the inner self. So I think Robert Greene talks about this a lot, about figuring out our life's task through our inner self and what we most, maybe not desire, but what life is asking from us. So this is, it's a hard, I want to say it's a hard state to get into and a hard state to explain, and that's why I want to talk about it and give it out right now, because it's more of just like, it's kind of, I want to say like the gut feeling, or just like kind of like the awe you get whenever you see someone else doing something that you have always wanted to do but have been too afraid to do it. So one example I'll give is I read Matthew McConaughey's biography, Green Lights, and I was absolutely awestruck by it. It was amazing. I mean, just his life in general and how he conducted himself, and also how he was kind of fearless of just life and being able to live fully. One thing he did was go on an RV and travel the United States for 2 years. And at the time, I was just in awe. I looked at that. I was like, oh my God, that's just so amazing. That's so cool. cool. Without even realizing, like, that was my inner self talking, saying, oh my God, that's something I want to do. That's something my inner self needs me to do. And it's highly linked to like the playful feel you get and the awe you get for seeing something that's deeply connected to yourself. And that's why we call it the inner self. Your inner self. And I think for me, meditation helped a lot to find that inner self, and also persistent review of my values and where I wanted to be in life, and also reviewing and thinking about myself. So, and I do that every Sunday, is review my reviews, review my values, and also just kind of listening throughout a week to what my inner self is most attracted to, engaged with, what activities are I play with, what action like to play with, what activities does it seem like that for others it seems like work, and for me it's play, which, talking in front of you guys is also reading, writing, thinking about complex ideas. Those are play to me. I love playing. And then traveling too. It's like, it's just so fun. I love going to different places and meeting different people. But also, I think one of my favorite parts is going to a place and then meeting a person I already know at that place. So like, I told you guys I'm moving to Budapest. Well, I'm gonna do backpacking across Europe and different countries and stuff in April. And I was talking with my mom about where we can meet up, and I just felt giddy. My inner self felt giddy. Yeah, ready. Yeah, just like, yes, that's what I meant to do. That's what I want to do. I want to happen, and I want them to come see me over here or going on my travels. Do. And of course, your inner voice, his inner self changes, and that's why you need to review and keep reviewing every single week or periodically. I don't want to say every single week because every person is different, but you need to make sure you're listening to it and putting in the work to listen to it as well, because it's not just going to come to you. Oh, it glitched. I was so scared. And going back to the meditation, why it helps a little bit. It helped me get into the inner self, is that whenever you get into a state of meditation, you're fully focused on the present moment. Your controlling self almost withers away, and your unconscious self becomes just another part of your environment. And in that sense, you're almost unburdened. All the selves clear out, even the biological selves of lust, desire, all of them clear out in your meditative state to leave just your inner self. And that happens a lot with work that engages people as well. So I would say, for me, writing does that for me. Whenever I get through the barrier of the first 5 minutes of just like, oh my God, I don't want to do this. After that, I get into a state where biologically I don't need anything. My controlling self doesn't need anything. It doesn't even feel like my controlling self, I'm making the decision myself, and my unconscious self is a part of the process of me doing the writing rather than an impediment impeding me from doing the actions or progressing. So in that sense, it's almost like everything's fully aligned for you to reach into yourself and yank that inner self off out and find out who you really are. So yeah, we got 4, and then we got the 5th one. So the 5th one's the really weird one that I don't know if I want to talk about it, but I will talk about it because, whatever. So biological self, controlling self, unconscious self, inner self. The next one, I want to say, is the connected self. Where do we start with this one? Maybe we should start with actual theory that people hold. So there's a theory out there with panpsychism. It's panpsychism. It's the belief that there's consciousness in almost every source of matter. So, as what I talked about before with Philip Goth, and his panpsychism is that there's a consciousness is a subjective experience, and most animals have that subjective experience as well, and it extends out to almost every atom and every molecule as well. It's just that their consciousness is at such a low level that they can't have these subjective experiences, or they're not part of the controlling self or unconscious self. So I want to think of the connected self as something like that, but not as consciousness, but as something that connects us with the universe itself. And I can go on a tangent in multiple different ways. But I think the best way to go down this hole is to think of the most extreme examples we know of. And I love extreme examples because that's where the learning happens and the growth happens. And the most extreme examples we have of consciousness right now are near-death experiences or out-of-body experiences. Especially with the amount of doctors that are doing research on these topics and are validifying these out-of-body experiences. That's a wrong way of explaining it, but having patients that are continuously coming up to them and telling them about these out-of-body experiences, and also the amount of times these patients know information that there's no possible way they're able to know them. If you want to, I'm going to go into one of the case examples of the out-of-body experience that kind of like shook me a little bit as well. And if you want to hear a good chunk of them and what different doctors are doing right now, I'll put a link to a podcast Tim Ferriss just did with I forgot the doctor's name, but I'll put it in the link below so you guys can find it as well, and listen to the full podcast, and then you can do your own research and dig deep on these out-of-body near-death experiences, because I shouldn't be your only source on the matter. But one example that they talk about is, I'm just gonna call this guy Kyle. He was in the hospital, and he would have regular, I think seizures it was. So he'd have regular seizures, but he between the seizures, he talked to this nurse. We'll just call her Sarah. This nurse Sarah is similar age as her, and he flirt with her, you know. Oh, what guys do. And well, there was one day that Sarah, she requested off, and another nurse came in and to take care of her. Of course, Kyle, all at this instance, had one of his seizures again. But this time he woke up, he came back and remembered a experience from that seizure, and it was that nurse. And in this experience, from what he could remember, or what his brain more specifically could recall, because that's how he was able to like understand the situation, is through his brain, and or the filter. God, this is hard to explain, but more like he's unable to. His explanations are the explanations that the brain can produce, not what the connected self or that experience actually entitled. But what he's talked about out in the experience is that he saw this girl Sarah, and this girl came up to him and said, "Tell my parents that I'm sorry I wrecked the car." And then she disappeared, and he came back. And then when he saw one of the nurses, he said, "Hey, what happened? Did something happen to Sarah?" And the nurse just was aghast, and she just looked away and started crying and left the room. Well, lo and behold, that Sarah actually got a car from her parents that weekend and was going to on vacation somewhere, and she ran into a telephone pole and died immediately. And I know the first thing you're thinking of is they must have overheard him. He must have overheard or them. But in the podcast, God, now I can't remember exactly what state he was in. I think he was unconscious. Please go back and watch that podcast, and then recorrect me if I'm wrong. But I want to say he was unconscious. And the doctor verified that no one else was in the room. No one even really knew about or man. Okay, I'm gonna go back and watch this podcast again, or that scenario again, because I want to. Because this is really dicey territory, to just speak off the cuff of. Because when you start talking about near-death experiences, there needs to be a healthy skepticism about it. We can't just believe a person on their word. And for me, it was this experience that Kyle had, and also the different other experiences that I heard in the podcast and the explanations that the doctor was talking about on it, how he conducted over 1,000 near-death experiences, or not conducted, but had was in some way involved with over 1,000 near-death experiences. Left their impression on me. And so I think with Kyle, there was some he himself was connected to Sarah in some way. That would be the only real explanation to it, because if he wasn't, then he would have no idea that she would have that accident. And I think that's where panpsychism comes in as well, is that there seems to be that everyone does have this kind of consciousness, but that for me it's like a connected, it's that connected self of the consciousness where each person in that you connect with and you are with and that you register in your unconscious, you're connected to in a way, because you know them. Maybe not know them, but are with them in a way. But also, going off the panpsychism, I'm right now, and what date is it? 10/28/2024. My views will always be open to change, and so take this with a grain of salt. At least right now, I do believe that there's some, almost in every atom, every molecule, and everything that can be called matter has some kind of conscious or this connected self, so that we ourselves can connect to it. And I think that's what happened in the situation that Kyle and Sarah was in, is that their interactions with each other created some connected self. And through their connection, he was able to almost link their unconsciousness together, so that he had information privy to him through Sarah and her unconscious, because as we talked about, the unconscious self is register information even when we're not noticing it. So it would make sense that her unconscious self did register, or the car, or of course her conscious self did as well. I'm not saying that, but unconscious self. And through it, and through being able to have a conscious, have this connection between each other, or Kyle was able to understand, and something that was beyond his beyond the capabilities of his biological, also of his controlling self, and even his own unconscious self and his inner self. I could go on about different near-death experiences and out-of-body experiences, and also the kind of how we're the, I would say, the control. Each of us live in our own universe and our own perspective and universe and world and understanding, but also are affected by every other person who thinks that as well. So we affect reality, and then a reality affects us. So almost like we're mini gods in a sense. And how our perspective of our worlds can intermingle with other people's worlds as well. But I think I'm getting a little too tired, honestly. It's 11:04 and I've been speaking for 36 minutes. And honestly, this is still fresh. Really fresh. I mean, like yesterday kind of fresh. So I still need to do a lot of thinking on it, and I still need to do a lot of writing on it, and I still need to do a lot of my research on it. I still need to be skeptical about it as well. So yeah, I think that's a good place to stop for tonight, because today was a lot of just like revelations and information just bombarding my unconscious self and controlling self that I still need to process and actually re-listen to and understand better and cultivate a better understanding. And I have different people I'll argue and kind of find different, well, I know this whole video is just whole plot holes. But once I've polished up the argument a little better to give it to people and see what holes they can make out of it and what I can kind of figure out from there. Well, now everyone's gonna think I'm god dang crazy, but it's alright. I'm in NASA, so. Anyways, thanks for listening. Hope you all have a great rest of your night, alright? Bye.